Amanda Devine, New York Post. Facebook spied on private messages of Americans who questioned 2020 election. Facebook has been spying on the private messages and data of American users, reporting them to the FBI if they express anti-government or anti-authority sentiments or question the 2020 election, according to sources within the Department of Justice. Under the FBI collaboration operation, somebody at Facebook red flagged those supposedly subversive private messages over the past 19 months and transmitted them in redacted form to the Domestic Terrorism Operational Unit at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. without a subpoena. It was done outside the legal process and without probable cause, alleged one of the sources who spoke on condition of anonymity. Now, see here, looking for, Facebook provides the FBI with private conversations which are protected by the First Amendment. Without any subpoena, these private messages that have been farmed out as leads to FBI field offices around the country, which subsequently requested subpoenas from the partner U.S. Attorney's Office in their district to officially obtain the private conversations that Facebook already had shown them. But when the targeted Facebook users were investigated by agents in a local FBI field office, sometimes using covert surveillance techniques, nothing criminal or violent turned up. Facebook spied on the private messages of Americans who questioned the 2020 election, DOJ sources said. All right, now I'm going to reveal something. And I want you to listen. I was asked not to, but I am. 13 email exchange that I had with John Eastman, an attorney for Donald Trump, wound up with the January 6th committee. Absolutely harmless emails. In fact, I was telling Eastman that some of the things he had in mind wouldn't cut it constitutionally. Putting that aside, where the hell did the committee get 13 of my emails, Mr. Producer? How did they get 13 of Mark's emails? I am going to get to the bottom of this one day, some way. Maybe when and if the Republicans take the House. I'm a media figure. Nothing to do with January 6th. I have no idea what's going on January 6th. But I want to know how the government got my 13 emails. I went back and read them. Absolutely harmless. I get people asking me questions all the time about the law, the Constitution, and so forth. I can't even keep track of it. It's so often. People who are in public, people who are in private, listeners, viewers, whatever. I lose track of it. That said, where the hell did they get them from? Now, there's a few political hacks who are dressed up as media types who've noted that they believe I have emails and privileges have been asserted over them, and so forth and so on. I don't know what's been asserted over what. I'm not involved. But their immediate assumption was that I was giving advice on what to do. I gave no advice on what to do. But I want to know how my emails, innocent emails nonetheless, but how my emails got in the hands of the January 6th committee and God knows who else. I want to know my computer's been tapped into. I want to know if my iPhone's been tapped into. I want to know. And at one point, sometime, some way, I'm going to find out. And whatever bastard or bastards have done it, I'm going to use the law to do everything I can to punish you. I'll be right back. In a world full of takers, Pure Talk wants to give you something. That's right. All in America.
Mark Levin, the great one.
The great one, Mark Levin.
Our anti-authority sentiments, intrepid reporter. As I said, Facebook has been spying on the private messages and data of American users and reporting them to the FBI if they express anti-government or anti-authority sentiments or question the 2020 election, according to sources within the Department of Justice. Under the FBI collaboration operation, somebody at Facebook red flagged those supposedly subversive private messages over the past 19 months and transmitted them in redacted form to the Domestic Terrorism Operational Unit at FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. without a subpoena. They're very busy there tracking parents, getting information from Facebook on innocent citizens. Really quite remarkable what Facebook is up to. But
Yeah,
even more
there's
the
an
Department of
estimated
Justice.
300 terrorists that the Biden administration let right into the United States when the
legal
Afghanistan
process,
withdrawal.
without probable cause, alleged one of the sources who spoke on condition of
Fucking
anonymity.
bullshit.
And remember, they were working with big tech, Facebook, Zuckerberg, to censor you as well. So the oligarchs really are the Democrat Party oligarchs that work with the Democrat regime to silence you and, of course, to monitor you. Facebook provides the FBI with private conversations which are protected by the First Amendment without any subpoena, they said. These private messages then have been farmed out as leads to FBI field offices around the country, but subsequently requested subpoenas for the partner U.S. Attorney's Office in their district to officially obtain the private conversations that Facebook has already shown them to cover up. But when the targeted Facebook users were investigated by agents in a local FBI field office, sometimes using covert surveillance techniques, nothing criminal or violent turned up.
Imagine that.
Facebook spied on the private messages of Americans who
Paranoia. Everybody's
going
going to get me.
It was a waste of time, said one source familiar with the subpoena request lodged during a 19-month frenzy by FBI headquarters in Washington to produce the caseload to match the Biden administration's rhetoric on domestic terrorism after the January 6th Capitol riot. The Facebook users, whose private communications Facebook had red flagged as domestic terrorism for the FBI, were all conservative, right-wing individuals, quote-unquote.
Of course. That's their
Quote, they
biggest
were
threat
gun-toting,
to freedom,
red-blooded Americans who were
independence.
angry after the election and shooting off their mouths and talking about staging protests. There was nothing criminal, nothing about violence or massacring or assassinating anyone. As soon as a subpoena was requested, within an hour, Facebook sent back gigabytes of data and photos. It was ready to go. They were just waiting for the legal process so they could send it. In other words, Facebook was coordinating with the FBI, and they didn't follow the legal process, of course. They covered up their dirty deeds, that is, the FBI.
Dirty
Facebook
deeds.
denied the allegations
Done
yesterday.
dirt cheap.
In two contrasting statements sent 1 hour apart, Erica Sakin, a spokesperson at Facebook's parent company, Meta, claimed Facebook's interactions with the FBI were designed to protect people from harm. In her first statement, she said these claims are false because they reflect a misunderstanding of how our systems protect people from harm and how we engage with law enforcement. We carefully scrutinize all government requests for user information to make sure they're legally valid, narrowly tailored. So you're going to rely on Zuckerberg and his crew, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, of course, he's a very smart young
In
man.
a second unprompted updated statement sent 64 minutes later, the same person, Sakin, altered her language to say the claims are wrong, not false. These claims are just wrong, she said. It's a suggestion that we seek out people's private messages for anti-government language or questions about the validity
Yes,
of
you
past
do.
elections.
Even YouTube does the same
And then
shit.
proactively supply those to the FBI as plainly inaccurate, and there's zero evidence to support it. Said Sagan, a DC-based crisis response expert who
They
previously
deleted
worked
videos
for
of
Planned
mine
Parenthood
that were set
and
to
Obama
private,
for
meaning nobody
America,
can view
and now
them,
leads
and they were
Facebook's
still
communications
deleted.
on counterterrorism and dangerous
And I
organizations
was
and
flagged
individuals.
for it. A strike put against me.
In a statement yesterday, the FBI neither confirmed nor denied allegations put to it about its joint operation with Facebook, which is designated as unclassified law enforcement sensitive. Now, responding to questions about the misuse of data only of American users, the statement curiously focused on foreign malign influence actors, but did acknowledge that the nature of the FBI's relationship with social media providers enables a quick exchange of information and is on an ongoing dialogue.
Without a court order. Imagine that.
Facebook, their denial that it proactively provides the FBI with private user data without a subpoena
Proactively.
true,
He's a
indicate
volunteer.
that the initial transfer has been done by a person or persons at the company designated as a confidential human source by the FBI, someone with the authority to access and search users' private messages. In this way, Facebook would have plausible deniability if questions arose about misuse. They're getting really good inside information, is the New York Post. If questions arose about misuse of users' data, its employees' confidentiality would be protected by the FBI. Before any subpoena was sought, that information had already been provided to FBI headquarters. The lead already contained specifics of the information inside the user's messages. So as I said, private citizen information was provided to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Without a court order.
And then they would seek a subpoena if they already violated your due process right.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
So much
your
for the
First Amendment
Constitution.
Some of the targeted Americans had posted photos of themselves shooting guns together and bitching about what happened after the 2020 election. You were members of a militia, but that was protected by the Second Amendment. They, Facebook and the FBI, were looking for conservative right-wing individuals. None were Antifa types.
By
That's a quote
intent.
from the source. One private conversation targeted
It's the
for
biggest
investigation,
threat to
quote,
their
spun up into multiple cases.
Tyrannical
Because
style
there were
of
multiple
leadership.
individuals in all these different chats, and it goes on. And you see, this is why you can see now what the U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington is doing. Throwing out subpoenas like they're throwing out, peanuts to elephants, just all over the place. Subpoena, subpoena, subpoena. Subpoena Mr. My Pillow. I mean, everybody and anyone who's in anybody's loop. Anybody and anyone. This is a massive constitutional crisis that we're in right now.
Yep.
Because of them.
Yep.
A massive constitutional crisis. And by the way, Letitia James, the radical hack Marxist Attorney General of New York, whom you've all heard about, who should have had her license pulled a long time ago, she's in a very tight race for Attorney General of New York. And we will have her Republican opponent on this program next week. Correct, Mr. Producer? Because that would be fantastic. You have a Republican governor, Lee Zeldin, help clean up that state. Republican Attorney General who will kick this Letitia James's ass out of office. Send her back to the Castro-like organization she came from. It's time to have a change. Very, very important. Now, with all this talk from Ken Burns and the other reprobates, there's a Hispanic student at UC Berkeley. They're having a discussion about social justice. And yet
Except for when it comes to conservatives.
that probably drove the lefties nuts.
Conservatives,
12, Mr. Producer, go.
right to
I'm a
life,
math major, so a
freedom,
STEM major. And in my school, they're
independence,
starting to bring in social justice
to
into
earn
STEM.
money.
And I've talked to the school and with my department, and I'm like, why are you doing this? Why are you bringing in something that has to do with social justice that has nothing to do with STEM? And the excuse that they bring to me is because of minorities, poor minorities. I'm a minority. I'm Hispanic, and I am a woman. And I'm like, I'm not a victim, and I don't need you to feel sorry for me. We don't need social justice. And they keep saying, oh, yes, we do, because we're a social justice school. That is what we do. And if you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. You can leave. And my concentration is in teaching. An advisor, listen, told me this. I told her, I'm not a bad person. I actually care about the education system and making sure that minority students actually get into STEM. That's my mission and my purpose.
Did CNN report this?
You know what she told me? She told me
No.
this. Oh, we don't know that yet. She told me this not once, 2 times. 2 times in different locations. You know something? We don't need social justice at all.
No, good for you, young lady. What we need is to get these malcontents the hell out of positions of authority.
Agreed.
And they are everywhere.
Anybody who
You're
desires to
absolutely
control somebody else
I'll be right back.
is sick in the head.
Levin.
I'm not happy until I have you under my thumb.
Takers, you're unlimited with a my company.
Run against incumbent Brian.
Line with her thinking, although even they would reject her, I think. She was on The View, what was this, yesterday, Mr. Producer? Being interviewed by Sonny Hostin, another reprobate. Cut 14, go.
So this is your second run against incumbent Brian Kemp for governor, and polls show a tight race, especially the poll this morning. Now, when you lost in 2018, you didn't traditionally concede, which I appreciated, because you cited voter suppression.
She appreciates that, see? I wonder if the FBI is investigating her and took her phone. Go ahead.
Confident that this will be a free and fair election and not
Erection.
a repeat performance of what happened before.
So I appreciate the question and the framing. I have never denied that I lost. I don't live in the governor's mansion. I would have noticed.
All right, she's never denied that she's lost. Cut 15, go.
I saw that there was a challenge with our voting system in the state of Georgia. I never denied the election. I do have one very affirmative statement to make. We won.
You refused to concede and say that you lost. Do you stand by that decision today?
Absolutely. The election was not fair. The process was not fair.
Was the election in Georgia statewide a free and fair election?
It was not a free and fair election. But will I say that this election was not tainted, was not a disinvestment and a disenfranchisement of thousands of voters? I will not say that.
You notably did not concede. Okay, you acknowledged that he won, but you did not concede. Right. 5 months later, you still feel like your opponent won through voter suppression.
Yes. Georgia voters did not have their votes counted. They were not allowed to cast votes. They had their votes discarded. And it was not fair to those who filled out absentee ballots. And depending on the county you sent it to, it either was counted or not counted, assuming you received it in time. Brian Kemp oversaw for 8 years the systematic and systemic dismantling of our democracy, and that means there could not be free and fair
voting is no more than an easy way to create fraud.
Lies. She even lies about lying. What about this, Sonny? And remember, every name on The View is the opposite of what these people are.
Yes.
Sonny Hostin. Nothing sunny about her. But you see, she agrees with Abrams. Voter suppression. And Abrams didn't really leave. These are election deniers, are they not, ladies and gentlemen?
They are.
I wonder if the Cubic Broadcasting System is going to do a special on this.
No.
PBS. Of course not. Of course not. They are election deniers, but it's okay. It's okay if you have an FBI that tries to take out candidates.
If you're a Democrat, it's okay to deny the election results.
It's not a big deal. All right. So a special master has been appointed trying to pull this up here. Here it is. Special master appointed. It's no surprise. To review documents from Mar-a-Lago. DOJ request to revive criminal probe is rejected. I like this judge. She's coming under vicious attack, but she's strong and smart. It's Judge Aileen Cannon. A Brooklyn-based federal judge was selected on Thursday to serve as an independent arbiter to review the material seized in the FBI's search of former President Trump's Florida home. Special master will be Senior Judge Raymond Deary, who was put forward as a possible candidate for the special master role by Trump, who had sued in court to obtain the review. The Justice Department also endorsed his appointment. This makes me nervous. I hope Trump's lawyers knew what they were doing here. U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon also rejected the Justice Department's bid to revive its investigation into classified documents seized at Mar-a-Lago last month. The denial sets the stage for the department's dispute with Trump over the search to move quickly to an appeals court, potentially the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, good for her. She hasn't been intimidated. Cannon gave the special master a deadline of November 30 to finish his review of potentially privileged documents. The schedule puts the review ending after the midterm congressional elections. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, this is what they're all about, the media, the Democrats, the Justice Department, and the FBI. Come on, let's get it done before the midterm. Come on, we got to affect the midterm.
Exactly. Accuse your enemy of everything you are physically doing.